right there. No DACA without a border wall. You've said that some kind of DACA protections have to be included in this bill to keep the government open in late January. So does that mean we're headed for a government shutdown?
Well, George, as you know, the Republicans control the White House, they control the Senate, they control the U.S. House. They will determine whether or not there's a government shutdown or not. And I certainly hope there is not a government shutdown. Government shutdown would be a disaster for this country. But when you have a president who precipitated this crisis back in September by revoking the DACA provision, and now we are in a position where some 800,000 young people who are raised in this country, young people who are in school, who are working in the U.S. military, now are living in extraordinary anxiety about whether or not they're going to lose their legal status and be subject to deportation. This is what the president precipitated. We have got to deal with that decision. So what we have got to do, it seems to me, is to pass the Dreamers legislation, which protects and provides legal status to these young people. Later on, we have to work for comprehensive immigration reform. That's what the American people want. 77% of the American people in a recent poll suggested that they wanted to see legal status for these young people. The American people, in fact, do not want to spend billions of dollars on a wall, which Trump told us would be paid for by the Mexican government, which, of course, is not going to be paid for by the Mexicans.
Is there any compromise here at all on the wall? In the past, you've had a lot of Democrats vote to double the size of the border fence to about 700 miles. Is there some kind of a compromise that can be worked out where you have increased funding for a fence, the president can call it a wall, and the Democrats get DACA protections?
I don't think there's anybody who disagrees that we need strong border security. And if the president wants to work with us to make sure that we have strong border security, let's do that. But the idea of spending some $18 billion on a wall that most people think will not do what he says it will do does not make any sense. And by the way, George, when we talk about a government shutdown, the other thing that concerns me is that Senator McConnell now wants to do away with the concept of parity, which is what we have had in 4 budget agreements since 2011. And what that means is that they want to spend $100 billion in the next couple of years on the military, but they are ignoring the needs of the middle class, ignoring the needs of veterans, ignoring the needs of people who are about to lose their pensions. These guys, the Republican leadership, unbelievably, has not even reauthorized the CHIP program for 9 million children in this country in terms of health care, or the community health center program. We've got to get our priorities right. And giving tax breaks to billionaires, throwing millions of people off of health insurance is not what we should be doing. We've got to pay attention to the working families of this country. And that means that we have got to protect their health care. We've got to make sure that young people in this country are not leaving school deeply in debt. We ought to fund adequately the Social Security Administration. 10,000 people died last year who are with disabilities because they didn't get the kind of attention they need in processing their claims from the Social Security Administration.
It sounds like
that concerns me as well.
Yeah, it sounds like there is a wide gap then between Republicans and Democrats as we're just a couple of weeks away from a possible shutdown. I also want to ask you about these concerns raised by the Michael Wolff book this week and the president's response this week saying that he's a stable genius. Do you have any concerns about, I just saw you raise your eyebrows right there, about the president's mental stability? And are you going to sign on to this legislation supported by many Democrats in the House who want an oversight commission on the president's capacity to handle the job?
Well, look, I'm not going to, what bothers me about this president is not so much what he says, although he is so offensive. I mean, just a few weeks ago, he attacked the United States Senator with sexual innuendo. He talks about prison for his former opponent in a presidential election. This is not what presidents of the United States do. But I am more worried about what this president's policies are in terms of telling the working people of this country during his campaign that he was going to stand with them, and yet he governs now as a representative of the billionaire class. Tax breaks for the wealthy, cutting people off of health insurance, ignoring the needs of children, not dealing with the prescription drug crisis in this country that he said he was going to deal with. I worry about him being a pathological liar. Those